Lights out.
Welcome, everyone, once again for another episode of SleepTech Talk, the sleep podcast with your with your hosts and friends, Robert Miller, Emerson Kerr, and me, Dr. Jerry Money Carode. We're here with you today just to have kind of a roundtable discussion, which we think is kind of veering from our normal way of what we've been doing, having a guest and talking to them. This is a little bit different, just the three of us, and we hope you enjoy. And I'm going to toss it off to Robert if you just go ahead and get us started off, sir.
Yes, absolutely. We appreciate everyone joining us today. Again, make sure you're liking and subscribing our podcast. We've had lots of great feedback, and we thought we'd spend some time today going through some of the different conversations that we've had with sleep techs who have sort of forged their way into different parts of the industry. And I think I'm going to actually give it to Emerson and let him start today and sort of talk about the things that have been interesting to him, maybe some new things that we've learned from guests, and maybe even additional input from those of you who listen and talk to us as we encounter each one of you in the other part of our world that we work in. So Emerson, if you would jump in and tell us what you think about the podcast series so far.
Oh, thank you, Robert and Jerry. This has been such an amazing adventure because when we first began talking about this, we really didn't have a script to work from. We've really kind of learned as we've gone, and it's been tremendously fun to learn and get to talk to people that we know, but get to take that deep dive with them. I think it was so amazing to get to start off with Marietta Bibbs. She runs such a complex clinic, and on top of it, manages the Southern Sleep Society. So she's got a few, moving plates in her life. But I think what's interesting about her, and I'm so glad we started with her, is how she really likes to maximize her team. She's got, her different navigators, for lack of a better word, but I mean, they really do a great job of coaching and educating their patients. And they have such a comprehensive system there at Baycare, and it was a lot of fun to talk to her and hear that. But I think really the person that jumped out the most was, and I wasn't surprised by this, was Soda Kuchkowski out of Buffalo. Her stories, her passion, her zeal for sleep were infectious. Hearing her talk about how she built her coaching program, and when you think about the fact that she started that well before any of us were even thinking about it, she recognized the need in her market, the need in her world. And, I can remember when she and I were discussing this broad concept at a meeting, I think we were in Dallas, and it just sounded so foreign to me at the time and interesting, but then she did it. She has her store, she has her education, she has her coaching. She builds her credential for herself with an established organization. Who does stuff like that? And I think that's what makes this podcast so fun, is we've gotten to talk to some really pioneering, people. Joe Petrola talking about blue blocking glasses. If you've looked at the Blue Winks, site, these are really attractive glasses that aren't going to have the yellow or bluish tint or whatever they're going to have, but they really worked hard to find something. And when you hear the story of how they did it and why they did that, and dig into his work, you begin to just see this theme of trying to care for people at a whole different level. And I think that's what's been fun so far, is hearing these stories, hearing these passions, hearing people think outside the box. And these aren't the physicians, that we're talking about. They're our peers. They're, clinicians, they're registered techs, they're people that have saw a need in the market and did what free enterprise does, is went and solved that problem with a free market concept, which, we're all passionate about. But I think for me, those have been some of the ones that have really left out. We've been so fortunate. I think we have like 10 that we've done. That's incredible. So it's hard to really even pick those three as the best, because they're all have been really enriching and so fun to be a part of. And I think we all have our different take on that. But Jerry, as you think about this, I mean, you've been doing sleep a long time. You like both of us. what did you find that stood out for you in these 10 episodes?
Hey, Emerson, thanks. I was going to say soda as well. I just found that whole concept so interesting. It was way outside of, like you said, who thinks of those kind of things? But since you've already mentioned her, the next person I'd like to bring up, or I was going to bring up, was Dr. G, or Greg Marshall, who was a RT and a registered sleep technologist who went on and got his PhD. But what he did was he built a program where you could get a bachelor's degree with sleep technology, but then he took it a step further and advocated for this program. You could actually get a master's degree with sleep and be able to move on in sleep technology. Who thinks of that? Who even thinks of how much scientific intervention you could have as a sleep technologist? Most of us, I can tell you, I did that when I started. I had so much blinders on, thinking that my job was to take care of this patient as soon as they came in and they left the lab, and that was the end of it. And I didn't think about them unless they came in for a PAP titration for the second night, and that was the end of it. I didn't see them again. However, and there was nothing else. It was a great job, but to be able to think in terms of, hey, you can do research, you can be in the cutting edge of science and be part of something even bigger that creates a global impact. I thought that was absolutely phenomenal for allowing us to think in those terms and realize that, hey, you could make a difference that affects the world altogether. So that was what really stuck out for me. Robert, what about you? What were you thinking through all of this?
Awesome. And no, that's great stuff. And by the way, if we leave anyone out and sort of reminiscing about some of our guests, we apologize in advance. It's not on purpose at all.
Agreed.
But I wanted to mention just a few that stood out to me. I thought that it was great to see, and really I think the basis of this entire program is really, it's focused around sleep tech and seeing the journey that some sleep techs have been able to create by finding other areas that are part of sleep medicine. And that, I think that's none better than someone like Kimmy Clark, who is a sleep tech, but she's involved in the accreditation committee for the American Academy of Sleep Medicine and a leader in that particular group. So I think that it's great to see the inclusion that's occurred for sleep techs with the American Academy of Sleep Medicine. It was great having Kimmy on the show because she could talk about things related to accreditation. I know it's an unnerving time for a lot of sleep labs to have the site visitors on site, but I hope that having Kimmy involved with the program at least help to answer some questions and even talk about some topics that may be a little bit taboo as it relates to sleep centers and the operations of sleep centers. We were able to cover a couple of those things. I am super, super, super passionate about inpatient sleep apnea screening. So Matthew Arrington, I completely felt like I probably hogged the spotlight a little bit too much that day when it came to asking questions. I probably jumped in too many times and didn't give you guys the time, but I'm just super passionate about it. I love to hear about successful programs. I think that Massey has worked really hard to implement a program that is sustaining and that certainly drives the right patient population through the sleep center program. I even liked I loved our very last episode with Dr. Aaron Elliott, where we're able to talk about oral appliance therapy. And while many folks don't necessarily talk about the division that occurs today between the oral appliance and the dental sleep world and sort of traditional PAP therapy programs, it was great to hear her sort of even make her pitch to those providers and clinicians out there to just give her a few minutes to talk about how to implement a program. So I love I love all of those things and have been super excited about the opportunity to learn more about people and how they've utilized their everybody started for the most part as a sleep tech, and how they have sort of changed over time. And it's not that we don't need sleep techs and that we need everyone to change, but it's been interesting to see how these successful careers have been created through through polysomnography. So I know that we're all super grateful about how we got started, and it's just great to be able to hear other people's stories too.
It's interesting you said that about Kimmy. It was when you heard her speak, you could hear the passion that she had in what she did, and to be able to feel that passion while speaking to her, which made me realize, yeah, you're right. It was a little unnerving when the site visitor came and did the inspection of our place. But I remember at that time also, I was very passionate about making sure my lab was at that level where it met all the standards, did everything right. And I could see why a sleep technologist would have that and be part of the ABSM and be able to have that kind of passion as well. Because it's her credentials are on the line when she's making her contributions there. And she's representing all of us when she's doing that, saying that this is the standard that a lab has to be, because we're the ones that are out there taking care of those patients. Wouldn't you guys agree with that?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, I think too, when you have so many market forces right now that are affecting sleep technology, it's everything from the artificial intelligence to an attrition in technologists. I think there's 3,000 open positions on Indeed right now for sleep techs. It's easy for people to look at this craft and this field and think, it's seen its heyday. It's in the twilight of its existence, and that's not true. I think what we're seeing with these different colleagues is people that are thinking outside the box are maximizing their skill sets, and they're finding a need and they're meeting that need, which is part of the American dream, so to speak. But there are headwinds that are facing us, and I think that's one of the things I love about this podcast, is that we're giving people an opportunity to see what even they could dream of, because that's the other thing that I think is always great is the standard we set in the beginning of this is, how did you get here? Every single person has a great story, and they seem to fall backwards into sleep. Very few people so far were seeking this career. It really sought them. I think it was Soda who even said that sleep found her. And I think that's part of this story, is we're able to show our colleagues that if they've got some great idea like Stuart has, creating a mask that's so unique, that solves a very unique problem, and which is just being able to tolerate CPAP, it opens up so many doors for other people to do the same thing. They could be sitting on a dream, a concept. I mean, as Robert, you were talking about with sleep navigation, that's such an important part of what we're doing, and it's so hard to get started. It might be one of the most difficult things to establish in a hospital, and for Massey to figure that out when we've seen so many others really struggle to build it or even sustain it, is quite a testament to what can happen. But it also reminds us that it can happen. That if you work hard and you line things up the right way, and you work the politics and the process, you can execute it. It's just finding that right, solution for your facility. What do you think, Robert?
No, I love that. And the fact that we have been very intentional about trying to find all of the aspects that go into this field of sleep medicine and sleep technology, sort of specifically. We've talked to the guy who was credentialed first with Inspire, who's a sleep tech. We've met with Joel, who talked about pediatric sleep medicine, which needs to be a part of every sleep program, because there certainly is a patient population out there. So, I know that we have, because of our intent to try to be so inclusive of all of the different aspects of the field. And we've still got more to go, by the way. So for anyone who does listen to the podcast, know that we have more guests on the horizon. They have new topics and new things to talk about. I think that we've just begun to scratch the surface about things that you're you just mentioned, Emerson, that are things that will impact the future. And maybe that's another podcast for us as a group of three, is to talk about where we see things headed in the future, and just based on our own personal experiences, our own personal opinions about the things that we see. And so maybe that's another episode for us to consider.
So, one of the interesting things that has come from this discussion is, what have we learned after talking to all these people? We talked about people that really stood out in our minds and where we saw them take it. But I think for me, the biggest takeaway from these few short episodes that we've had with all these folks was, it is, sleep technology is beyond looking at squiggly lines on a screen, or in the old days on paper, or sticking leads on a person. It's way, way, way beyond that. Yeah, like Emerson referred to SOTA, whether it's a retail store or it's a master's degree program, a new mask, glasses. I mean, you name it. There was so much out there that there can stem from this field. And I love the way you put it, Emerson, was this craft that we have, where you're the core of this thing that we call sleep medicine and sleep technology. You develop this craft, but you can take it to make an impact all over. So for me, that was the biggest takeaway. My biggest learning from all of these is that sleep technology is way beyond just what I was introduced to in the beginning, which was being that monitor, the eyes and ears for the sleep physician during the night. I'd love to hear what you guys took from that.
Well, it is interesting, because I think to myself that it's not that I got into the field of sleep technology completely on purpose. If you go back and listen to, it was by accident, and I think it was honestly because I was going to make maybe 50 cents more than I made in my current role working in the operating room at a hospital at the time. But I always wanted to use every experience to build on, use that experience to build on the next opportunity that came along. And it really has sort of taken all of those things to, give me the experience and the information that I need to be able to work in the role that I am in today. I know probably same thing for you guys.
Oh, there's no question. I mean, we've really been fortunate, knowing our stories, but I think everybody is. I mean, to be able to be a part of this industry, to be a part of sleep medicine, it's kind of crazy when you think about it. When you tell people what you do and you say you work in sleep medicine, you are guaranteed to have a conversation after that, because they're going to tell you either what they think they know about it, somebody that they know that has it. It's always going to go there. Every time I go to the barber shop, it's a sleep conversation with the entire room. It's quite entertaining, but that's part of the fun of it, is we're a part of something that people spend 1/3 of their life doing. And, if we can solve that thing, if we can help our colleagues see that, going back to what you said about David Moore, here's a guy who's been at UAB, University of Alabama, Birmingham, for 20 plus years. And he's in his second career now, working with Inspire and as the first, certified technologist with them. That's incredible. Who would have thought that one of our own could step into that space and have a second career with their life, when they really should be retiring and enjoying, these latter parts of their career, their life. And many of us are not built that way. We want to keep pushing and we want to keep reaching. And that's the other fun part of this, is you don't have to be at the end, and you don't, even if you're at a place where you feel like maybe your hospital is closing or your lab is closing, these stories all also speak to what you could do next. And I think the most important part is taking that passion for sleep, which we all seem to have, harnessing it and putting it in a place where you can solve a problem. And that's, reaching back to someone who's 1/3 of their life is messed up. How can you lead them to better health, better sleep, and ultimately a better life?
Emerson, that's extremely well said. And I think we're getting on for time. So let's take this opportunity to wrap it up. But as we wrap it up, I think I'm speaking on behalf of all three of us, by saying we thank you all so much for your support, all of these episodes, and we look forward to continuing to bring you quality programming with great guests, more information, more knowledge. And we ask you to continue supporting us, giving us the likes on YouTube, the 5-star ratings on your favorite podcast platform. And if you can give us reviews, take some time to create some reviews, we'd really appreciate that. And don't forget, there are thousands of sleep techs across the world. Be sure to share this podcast with each and every one of them. And until then, we want to say thank you all. And till the next episode, lights on.